Hello everyone, and in this tutorial what I'm going to be talking about are the instrument channel settings within FL Studio. And I'm using FL Studio 9 right now, and there's so many new features that I'd like to cover, but I really do want to focus on the basics. And this is a feature that's been with FL Studio for a long time, and the reason why I want to talk about this though is because a lot of people tend to overlook these features. There are a lot of interesting things you can do here that can really help you produce better music, so I'm going to go over some of these concepts here. And a lot of the things you'll find here, like attack, sustain, decay, release, the panning, volume, the cut threshold, resonance, pitch. I mean, these are all very common features you'll find in all digital audio workstations. It's good to be aware of a lot of these concepts here. And here we have an LFO and a filter. Let's get started. Right now, we're just going to take a look at instrument settings. In an upcoming tutorial, we're going to take a look at these special functions here too. These are really neat also. So I'm just going to start off with a 3x oscillator. Keep this simple here. I'm going to delete this channel, this empty sampler channel. So I have a 3x oscillator here. And in the instrument settings, we have a lot of things going on here. We have multiple tabs here. Depending on which tab you select, you're going to get different functions to work with. Right now we're just going to take a look at the volume function, and obviously the volume function is the volume of the instrument sample, and we can adjust how that volume reacts to your keyboard input or how it reacts in the piano roll when sequenced. Right now the envelope is not enabled, so this is just kind of the default sound for the 3x oscillator. Once we enable the envelope right here, now this envelope is active. The attack is this slope. If we make this attack really long, now I'm actually pressing the key down here, and this slope is so long that it's not really reaching a volume. It's taking a long time to peak to its maximum velocity here. So attack, pretty simple to understand. If I shorten the attack, no attack. We have something here. This is a good thing to enable, and this is just, it means it's tempo based now when this is enabled, and that means we can get more precise timing. It's a good option to just turn that on. But right here, what if we wanted some precision here? What if I wanted this to fade up in the time of a quarter note based on the tempo here? I would right click, choose set 4 steps. Now I know this is going to take a quarter note to fade up. Look here. It takes a quarter note of time for it to fade up to its maximum velocity. How do I know that? Well, I right clicked here, I chose set, and I chose 4 steps. And 4 steps means 1, 2, 3, 4 steps. If I wanted this to go a half note, to take a half note of time to fade up to maximum velocity, I'd right click here and choose set 8 steps. We play. It takes a half note of time for that to peak to its maximum velocity. Hold right here. Hold means after it peaks, and I'm just going to set my attack down to nothing here. Just to explain, hold here, same concept. This means how long is the note going to hold. And let's say I wanted this to hold for a quarter note and then start fading out. I would do set 4 steps on the hold. And I'm just going to adjust the sustain. So this is going to be a note with the length of a quarter note. So I created this envelope here just to illustrate this concept of the hold. So take a look here. When I press play, the note's going to stop right here, quarter note. All right, if I change a hold to set to 8 steps, we're going to have a half note. So that's hold. Then we have decay. All right, how long is it going to take for the note to fade out? Now at this point, all right, I created this so it stops immediately. If we adjust the decay to quarter note, it's going to, taking a look here, a half note, and then a quarter note to fade out. Or we can set this to 8, and then half note, hold, half note, fade out. Here we have sustain. And sustain, I'm going to turn off the decay so you don't get confused with the decay. So the decay is turned off. And I'm going to change the hold to 2 steps. So we got a real short note. The sustain is turned all the way down, and when I press my key and hold it down here, we don't have any sustain at all. However, if I turn this all the way up, even though the hold is only set to an 8th note at this point, with the sustain turned all the way up, when I press my key and hold it, the note sustains. Right? That's what that means. When the key is pressed while the note is playing, how long is it going to continue to play? Even with the sustain at halfway, it's still going to hold. The velocity is going to be lower. Hear how that works. And typically with sustain, you'd want it all the way off or all the way on. One of the two. So that's sustain off, and then that's sustain turned all the way up. All right, now with the release, this is pretty easy to understand. The release is down here, and the release simply means how long does the note ring out after you release the key. So I'm going to adjust the decay a little bit. All right, and notice here, I press the note down, release, it stops. We don't hear anything. When I adjust the release, turn it up about there, when I press the note and release it, it takes time for that note to fade out, even after the note is released. So that's what the release is all about. And you want to be careful with the release. Never put the release all the way up. If you put the release all the way up, you press your note, you can release it, that'll ring out throughout your entire song. If you ever run into that situation where even after a note stops playing, it rings out throughout your entire song, you know you did something wrong here. Make sure that release time isn't turned all the way up. So we have different areas that we can work with. Now the volume directly affects the sound here. These other channels work directly with the LFO down here. These are LFO tools. Right here we have panning. And actually I'm going to adjust the hold here. I set this to 8. Set the decay to 4. Put the attack up. And I'm just setting this up. Bear with me here. Sorry about that. There we go. And then sustain. We'll work with that for now. Alright, so here's panning. We have an LFO down here. The panning we can adjust by just turning up the amount here. Right, if I turn the amount, notice we have a panning effect taking place here. This we can adjust the LFO here. Alright, this is the pre-delay. And right here, I didn't talk about this right here. This is just a pre-delay. Something that I don't use too often, but this can actually be automated. There's some interesting effects you can produce here with that, and I don't think I'm going to give you an example of this in this tutorial, but we're just going to talk about this. I'll get back to that panning LFO in a moment. I just forgot this. So we're going to go to the FL Studio Kick. I'm going to choose Preset and Punch. Right back here. Notice what we got here. And in this case, I'm going to turn off the sustain, decay, release, and attack. And I'm going to set this to, right here, set the hold to 2 steps. So we got that short note again. I have a kick here. And all the delay does is it shifts the timing a little bit. Once again, if I right click here and choose set 2 steps, this is going to shift the notes over an eighth note. So we have something that sounds like this now. That's what that's all about. And rather than resetting my 3x oscillator, I'm going to just add a new 3x oscillator channel. In here, I'm going to delete the punch. So we can go in here and talk about panning now. As I mentioned here, you select the panning tab here, and to activate it, all you have to do is turn up the amount here. And it's a panning envelope following this LFO. The amount just determines the stereo field, whether you're panning 100% left or right, or maybe just part of the way, maybe halfway. We have a speed here. And this is going so fast you can't hardly hear the stereo effect. Okay, here, speed and different shapes. This would give us a more extreme. And we have a square wave here. And we do have that option to set the time. Remember this, tempo based. We can set a precise time here. We can have this pan every 2 steps. That means every 8th note, it's going to pan left and right. We got precise timing here. That's going to go every quarter note. Then we have, of course, these different shapes that I mentioned. And here's the sine. It's going to be smoother. This is our triangle wave. And then our square wave here. Now, if I wanted to turn that off, I can just reset that to 0. And now we don't have that panning effect taking place. And here I have cut. Now, this LFO is for panning. So each option here has its own LFO. This LFO is independent from this one. And in the case of the cut, this is the cut threshold. Since the 3x oscillator is made up of pure tones, using that as an example here for the cut is not the best example. So I'm going to load up another example here. I'm going to just load up a breakbeat drum beat, just so you can hear this effect with the 3x oscillator. Even though we can use a cut resonant effect, it's going to be a little difficult to really hear it and produce a good example with that. So here I have a breakbeat drum pattern, and we're going to just use the instrument channel settings, and we're going to just adjust the cut and the resonance here. Now, these are scientific terms related to audio, and this is the cut threshold, and it's just a frequency filter. It just changes the sound, and that's pretty much all you need to know. Same thing with the resonance here. And the resonance has to deal with the variation of frequencies is resonance, and this tool allows you to apply an LFO to the resonant frequencies. And the best way to use these tools is just to experiment with them a little bit. They produce a neat effect. So make this sound a little more interesting by using the cut and the resonance here. So same thing here, you would adjust the amount for the cut, and then I'm going to press play, and we're not hearing anything. One thing you got to remember, I'm going to set this to tempo based, and I also got to enable this envelope. Now we're hearing it. And I'm going to set the speed to 1. That's like a bit cruncher. And so when you turn this amount all the way up with the speed all the way down here, it's get that lo-fi effect. But I'm going to set that speed to 1 again. And we have all the same options here. We have different LFO envelopes that we can use. And even this is active. So this has an effect. It's the same kind of envelope. And then here's resonance. Same concept going on here. We have to enable it up here. And we can adjust the amount here. And I'm going to set this to tempo based. And I'm going to set the speed to this to 1 as well. And that's a more subtle effect there. Now the last thing we have is the pitch. Same thing going on here. We have the amount, turn on tempo based. So there we have the 3x oscillator. And when I enable that envelope, turn the amount up. So we have the pitch actually being automated here. And you can produce some really neat sci-fi kind of effects here with that. Playing around with the envelope, you can listen to this. There you have it. Those are the instrument channel settings. We have a lot going on here. I didn't talk about filter. This video is getting a little long, but here we have some filter tools. Also, I'm going to cover that in another video. In an upcoming video, I'm going to talk about these filter tools, the miscellaneous tab. We're going to be talking about channel cutting and the filters in another tutorial, because this tutorial is getting awfully long. But then after that, I'm going to be talking about special functions as well. Thanks for watching, and with that, I'm just going to end this video.